Thank you guys for tuning in to my YouTube channel. Alright, before we get into it, just want you guys going to hit that subscribe button. Just go ahead and murder that subscribe button. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. So basically, I want to talk to you guys is about why I believe Wemby and the Spurs beat OKC to reach the NBA Finals. When I look back at the Western Conference Finals between the Spurs and the Thunder, I don't think the series was won because San Antonio had more talent. I don't think it was won because OKC suddenly forgot how to play basketball. I definitely don't think it was won because SGA wasn't incredible. To me, the Spurs won because they solved the hardest problem in basketball. How do you beat a team that has the MVP, the best record, and the confidence of a defending champion? The answer is simple. They made OKC uncomfortable, and it started with Victor Wembanyama. Wemby averaged 27.3 points a game, 11 rebounds, and 3 blocks for the series, as was unanimously named the Western Conference Finals MVP after leading the San Antonio to the 7-game upset. This series was bigger than Wemby's versus SGA. The media wanted it to be Victor Wembanyama versus SGA, and yes, those two were the stars, but that's not why San Antonio won. In my opinion, the biggest difference was that San Antonio had answers everywhere. Every time OKC focused on stopping Wemby, somebody else stepped up. Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Dylan Harper, Julian Champagnie, Luke Cornett. Over and over again, different Spurs players delivered winning plays when the moment demanded it. That's what makes championship caliber teams do. Wemby changed the entire geometry of the court. What fascinated me about Wemby is his impact on that, how his impact goes beyond his statistics. When he stands in the paint, his offense start second guessing themselves. Driving hesitation, passers altered angles, shooters rush decisions. The Spurs didn't just have an elite defender. They had a defensive system disguised as one player. The Thunder attack is built around putting pressure on the rim, but every time they got there, Wemby was waiting. That's exhausting mentally. After 7 games, that kind of pressure wears on a team. San Antonio found a way to slow down the MVP. That was probably the biggest factor. Nobody completely stopped SGA. You don't shut down a player of that caliber, but you can make him work. And the Spurs did exactly that. They consistently threw different defenders at him. Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Dylan Harper, Carter Bryant. Then SGA beat the first defender. He had Wemby waiting behind them. The result, shea efficiency dropped dramatically compared to the regular season standards. During the series, he shot below 38% from the field and struggled to find consistent rhythm. That's not an accident. That's elite defense planning. Game 6 changed everything to me. The turning point wasn't Game 7, it was Game 6. The Spurs were facing elimination, one bad night, and the season was over. Instead, they destroyed Oklahoma City 118-91. Wemby delivered 28 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks, while the Spurs completely overwhelmed the Thunder. What stood out wasn't the score. It was the confidence. The first time all series, San Antonio looked like the team that expected to win. The Thunder suddenly looked like the team feeling pressure, and momentum in the playoff basketball is real. The young Spurs grew up overnight. One thing nobody expected entering the playoffs was for such a young team to handle pressure this well. Normally, youth becomes a weakness. For San Antonio, it became their strength. They played fearlessly, no hesitation, no fear of the moment, no fear of OKC crowd, no fear of defending champions. Game after game, they looked like a team that believed it belonged. That's why most analysts came away talking about their toughness, their preparation, and composure. Mitch Johnson won the coaching battle. I don't think enough people are talking about this. But Mitch Johnson was phenomenal throughout this series. Every game felt like he had a new adjustment, different defensive coverages, different rotations, different ways to attack OKC weaknesses. By the end of the series, it felt like San Antonio had become the more adaptable team. Playoff basketball often comes down to adjustments. The Spurs consistently made the right ones. Role players won Game 7. Here's something that doesn't get enough attention. SGA scored 35 points in Game 7, 35. Most nights that's enough, but basketball isn't won by star alone. Game 7 belonged to the San Antonio supporting cast. Julian Champagnie hit 6 threes and scored 20 points. Dylan Harper contributed. Luke Kennard delivered key defensive possessions. The Spurs got production from everywhere. That's why they won despite SGA heroic scoring. Wemby was the best player in the biggest moments. When great players become legends, they do it in games like this. Elimination games, Game 7, conference finals, moments where career changes. Wemby responded every single time. When San Antonio needed Game 4, he dominated. When they needed Game 6, he dominated. When they needed Game 7, he delivered again with 22.7 rebounds and elite defense. That's why he walked away with the conference finals MVP trophy, not because he was the most talented player, because he was the most impactful player. The Spurs ultimately won. Why the Spurs ultimately won? If someone asked me why did San Antonio beat OKC, my answer would be simple. They defended better. They adjusted better. They got more contribution from their supporting cast. They made life difficult for the MVP SGA. And they had Victor Wembanyama playing like a future face of the NBA. The Thunder had the MVP. The Spurs had the best player in the series. And overall, brutal games that ended up all making all the differences. Now the reward is a trip to the NBA Finals against the New York Knicks. Wemby and the San Antonio Spurs didn't just beat the defending conference champions. They announced to the basketball world that the future isn't coming anywhere. Isn't coming anywhere. The future has arrived. To me, I personally didn't think that the Spurs and Wemby could beat OKC. I had OKC winning in 7 before this series started, but I did. When I was talking with my cousin, I was telling him that my cousin was telling me that the Spurs got enough. I thought they had enough to win it this year, but I just felt like they lack of experience wouldn't be able to beat OKC, even though the Spurs has been beating OKC all year long. But we don't look at the regular season is as much to look back on, even though the Spurs was blowing them out every game they played in the regular season. But in the playoffs, we know it's a different ball game. But at the end of the day, I told my cousin I thought that the Spurs would ultimately get to the Western Conference Finals, which they did. I just thought that they would lose against OKC in 7 games. I just think that I thought that the Spurs will win next year. I thought that they'll reach the finals next year and ultimately win it. But it seems like they're in a great position right now to beat the Knicks in the finals. But it's gonna be an interesting matchup. They definitely made it through the gauntlet. They've been battle tested, and they breaking all the rules that you don't need experience. At least right now, it hasn't caught up with them. The lack of experience. They haven't been exposed for lack of experience in all these games because they in uncharted territory. At the end of the day, let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys got, the Knicks or the Spurs in the finals? Let me know what you guys think. Drop your comments in the comment section. Hit that thumbs up button, and I'm out.